Salvete omnes. This is Review 8, chapters 29 through 32. Exercise A. This is the parsing Latin and translating into English exercise. Number 1. Duo milia civium illius opidi verba principis 3 horas audiverunt. Tum illum delegerunt regem. So we start at the left and go word by word till we get to the end. First word is duo. Duo, duai, duo. It could either be nominative or plural, masculine or neuter. Because it's neuter nominative, it could also be accusative plural neuter. Remember that two is always plural. Milia, milium, neuter plural. This means thousands, more than a singular mille, thousand. Mille is an indeclinable adjective. It only works when you have 1,000. If you have more than 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, etc., you must use the noun milia, milium, neuter plural. But that means that you must use a partitive genitive with this noun milia, milium in order to indicate thousands of what? Of something. So duo, duai, duo, numerals, those are adjectives. It will agree with milia, a noun in gender numbering case. So nominative or accusative, plural, neuter. So you can cross off nominative if you really feel like it. Civium, from civis, masculine or feminine. You could also write C for common, the letter C. It means citizen. And the civium, ium, that's an I stem, and it's genitive plural, because it's a third declension, genitive plural. Now, the reason for genitive here is that it's a partitive genitive. Partitive genitives are used with the noun milia to indicate thousands of something. You can't just stick the two nouns together in whatever case you want and leave them as is. Milia, it's going to be whatever case you need in the sentence. But civium, that'll always be the partitive genitive to go with milia, because it's thousands of citizens. If it were thousands of soldiers, you'd have militum. If it were thousands of boys, you'd have puerorum. If it were thousands of girls, you'd have puellarum. So this is a partitive genitive. Illius, from ille, illa, illud, is that over there, yonder, far away. Third person demonstrative, it's far away from you, the speaker. That form illius, that can only be the genitive singular. It could be masculine, feminine, or neuter. It could be any gender, but that can only be the genitive because ille is a heteroclite. What'd you call me? It's got an ius in the genitive singular, illius, and an I in the dative singular. So illi, the letter I, illi. So it could be any gender, but it's going to be definitely genitive singular. And it's probably going to show possession. Probably. Oppidi, from oppidum e neuter. Because it's neuter, its plural would be oppida. Oppidorum, oppidis, oppida, oppidis. So that oppidi form, that can only be genitive. It can only be genitive singular, and it's neuter. So that's probably going to be the noun with which illius agrees. Illius, the demonstrative over there, it's describing this oppidum. So it's that one over there. That town over there yonder. That's probably possession. We'll put an of in front of it because it's genitive. 2,000 of citizens of that town. 2,000 citizens of that town. This is most correctly something like a genitive of origin, meaning the citizens came from that town. Even in English, we'll use of. The citizens of that town, from that town. Verba, from verbum e neuter, word. That is either the nominative or accusative plural neuter, because it's neuter. Verba, verborum, verbis, verba, verbis. Principes, principes, masculine, prince, can either mean chief or chieftain. And principes has to be the genitive singular masculine. This is probably going to be a genitive of possession. The princeps, the principes genitive, he's probably possessing or owning the verba, the words. Now, it is a duel to the death. Are the milia the subject nominative, the thousands of citizens, are they the subject of the verb? Are they doing the action of the verb? Or is it the verba, the words of the chief? Are they doing the action of the word? One of them has to be the subject and the other one has to be the direct object. So either the 2,000s of citizens are doing something to the words or the words are doing something to the 2,000s of citizens. Tres, tria, three, either nominative or accusative plural feminine or masculine feminine. Like duo, this is an adjective, it's a numeral. Numerals unus, duo, and tres, they actually decline to agree with nouns. Quatuor, four, and up do not, they're indeclinable. So this is tres, tria, either nominative or accusative plural, masculine or feminine. And it agrees with horas, horai feminine, hour, as in the measurement of time. That's the accusative plural. It's accusative plural feminine, and it's showing duration of time. So hora, the time word. Time words in the accusative show length of time, how long the action of the verb extended, duration of time. And then audiverunt, from audio, audire, audivi, auditus, to hear. That's the third person plural perfect. You can see the perfect stem there. Perfect active indicative, so they. All right, we have to make a decision. Either the 2,000 citizens of that town heard the words of the chieftain for 3 hours, or the words of the chieftain heard the 2,000 citizens of that town for 3 hours. I'm going to go with, I know you're saying the latter, the second one, but we actually should put down the first answer for that. That's actually the more correct one. I know I hear you, but it is milia, the nominative subject, verba, the accusative direct object. 2,000 citizens of yonder town heard the words of the chief, of the prince, of the chieftain's words for the duration of 3 hours. Semicolon. We're not done with the sentence. Tum, adverb, meaning then, at that time, or thereupon, at that time. Ille, once again, ille, illa, illud, that, those, yonder, over there. Illum, that's got to be the accusative singular masculine. Delegerunt, from deligo, delegere, delegi, delectus. If you take the E off on delectus, you can see electus, and that's what it means, to elect, to choose, to pick out. Deleg, that's the third principal part, chop off the I, deleg, and then add the third plural perfect, erunt, active indicative, delegerunt, so they chose, the 2,000 citizens, probably the same subject here. Then they, the 2,000 citizens, chose illum, that guy, and then regem, rex regis masculine, king. And regem is the accusative singular masculine. Now, why is it accusative? It's not the direct object. Delegerunt illum. The illum is the direct object. This is receiving the action of the verb. Regem is what we call a predicate accusative. It's modifying this accusative direct object. It's what you make someone or choose someone, or in the sentence, I painted the barn red. So I painted the barn, the direct object, and I made it red. Red is a predicate accusative. Optime, secunda, sententia secunda. Milites, qui in acie pugnare, ob tellorum timorum non possunt, hostes prohibere muro cogentur. Great sentence. So milites, that comes from miles militis, masculine, soldier, and it's either nominative or accusative plural. If it's nominative, it's the subject. If it's accusative, it's the direct object. We don't know which yet. Qui, from qui, quae, quod, this is who, which. It is the relative pronoun, which means that it relates back, because it's relative, it relates back to an antecedent, the noun which comes before. The antecedent of qui is milites. If milites is nominative plural masculine or accusative plural masculine, the relative pronoun must agree in gender and number. So it must be plural masculine. The case of the relative pronoun comes from how it acts, what its syntax is, its reason inside this relative clause that it introduces. Now, milites can be either the subject or the direct object. It doesn't matter. Qui is definitely nominative. It's not accusative. Qui is definitely nominative. So qui, nominative, plural, masculine, who. The soldiers who. So either the soldiers who, and then they're going to do something, or something's going to happen to these soldiers who, in plus the accusative shows motion towards, but in plus the ablative shows location. And here we have ablative of location, akie, from akies, a feminine, which means sharp point, edge. It can also mean battle line. So we can say in the sharp edge, on the sharp edge, or in the battle line. Pugnare. Pugnare, from pugna, pugnare, pugnavi, pugnatus, to fight. This is the present active infinitive. And a couple uses or reasons for the infinitive, subjective, objective, and complementary. And we really don't have enough information right now to make a good call. So we're just going to keep in mind that that's a present active infinitive, to fight, or the act of fighting in the battle line. So like at the front line. Ob has the same meaning as propter. Both take the accusative and mean on account of, because of. So we're looking for an accusative to go with this, on account of some accusative. Tellorum. Now it might be tempting to say, well, there's the accusative, but it's not. That's tellum e neuter. This is why we memorize vocabulary. Tellum e neuter, weapons. Those are assault weapons. Those are offensive weapons. Missiles, things that you throw, things that you put at a distance, only offensive weapons, as opposed to arma. Arma are defensive weapons. That includes your knives, swords, the things that you keep close to your body. So tellum e neuter, tellorum is actually genitive plural. And we don't quite know the reason for the genitive yet. We know possession, we know objective, and partitive. And we don't have enough information to make a good enough call. Keep all the options open in your head at once. Fun, huh? Timorem, from timor, timoris, masculine, mean fear, like timidness. So that's accusative. That's the accusative that goes with ob. On account of the fear, because of the fear, the timorem. So accusative with preposition ob. The fear, tellorum. We know tellorum, the modifying genitive, has to go with timorem because it is nestled snugly in between the preposition and the noun that goes with the preposition. So it's like, gotta go with this thing right here. So on account of the fear of the weapons. Now tellorum, we now know what kind of genitive that is. That's an objective genitive. It's not the weapons fear. The weapons don't own the fear. The weapons don't possess the fear. You wouldn't write weapons with an S apostrophe fear on account of the weapons fear. The weapons aren't afraid. It's on account of the fear towards the weapons. The fear of the weapons, towards the weapons, the fear that you have towards the weapons. That's why it's called an objective genitive. The genitive is the object of the fear. So tellorum is an objective genitive. This would be a great quiz question. So on account of the fear of weapons, the fear towards weapons. So there are some soldiers who, something about fighting in the battle line on account of the fear of weapons. Known, all right, adverb negating the verb possunt, possum, posse, potui. You should be able to see sunt right there. They are, third person plural of sum. When you add pot, potential, it becomes potsunt, and that T becomes an S. Assimilates to a double S, possunt. They are able. It's the third person plural present active indicative of possum, to be able to. Possum screams out, nay, requires. A complementary infinitive to complete or complement its meaning. So they are not able to fight. So these guys, these soldiers who are not able to fight in the battle line, why not? Because they're afraid of the weapons. They're afraid of getting hit in the face with a projectile, with a missile, basically. And I'm not talking about like a missile that you launch, but like a missile, a thing that you technically throw. Anything you throw is a missile. It comes from the Latin mitto, something that you send. Sending this your way. It's like a javelin or a spear. So they're afraid of getting speared in the face. So the soldiers who are not able, present tense, they are currently not able to fight in the battle line because of a fear of the weapons. Sorry, sir. Actually, I'm going to have to go at the back of the line because I'm scared of getting hurt. All right, soldier, off you go. Hostes. Hostes, either nominative or accusative plural of hostis, hostis, masculine, meaning an enemy, a public enemy, an enemy of the state. as opposed to inimicus, which is a personal enemy, not your friend. Hostes is a hostile. In the plural, it typically means the enemy, like the host, a host of enemies. So we put a definite article, the enemy. So we don't know right now if it's the soldiers who can't fight in the battle line because they're scared of the weapons, or the enemy who are the subject. But this is the relative clause. So the relative clause ends in posunt. Just giving us more information about the soldiers. It's an adjectival clause because it's describing a noun, soldiers. Prohibere, another present active infinitive of prohibeo, prohibere, prohibui, prohibitus, to keep away, to hold back, prohibeo, prohabeo, to have in front, to hold off. And it usually, not always, but it usually takes an ablative of separation, like muro. Muros e masculine mean a wall. So to keep away from the wall, ablative of separation. Notice the lack of preposition. You don't really need it because it's kind of already contained in the prohibere. Now, why do we have this present active infinitive? You know a couple uses of the infinitive. You know subjective infinitive, objective infinitive, and complementary infinitive. Let's find out. Cogentur, from cogo, cogere, coegi, coactus, meaning to drive together, or it can also mean to compel, to force. So it can mean to gather, to drive together, or to compel or force. Two different meanings. You got to use context to figure out which one. It is most certainly, there's the present stem, cog, because it's a third conjugation, chop the O off the first principal part, cog, and then entor, third person plural, future. That's got to be future, passive indicative. It'd be cogar, cogeris, cogetur, cogemur, cogemini, cogentur. For those of you playing the home game and wondering, well, what would the present tense be? It'd be coguntur, coguntur, with a U instead of an E. Coguntur would be they are gathered or they are forced. Here it's they will be forced. And I think it is forced. They will be forced to keep the enemy from the wall. So I think the soldiers are the subject, nominative. The soldiers who are not able to fight in the battle line because they're scared of the weapons, those guys are the subject. They will be forced to keep the subject accusative, hostes, from the ablative of separation. I'm sorry, that's not a subject accusative. That's just an ordinary old direct object. Forget I said that. Accusative direct object, hostes. To keep an accusative direct object away from an ablative of separation. To keep the enemy from the wall. Optime, great sentence. Tertia, septimo die. Perites tellis casra apud naverunt, et ducem hostium caperunt. So septimo from septimus aum, meaning seventh. It's an ordinal, seventh. It's an adjective, so we'll agree with the noun and gender numbering case, unless it's a substantive. So the seventh something. Die. So dies, a masculine. It's one of the few masculine fifth declensions. Means day, and it's ablative, die. So ablative, singular, masculine. Probably it is time when, because dies, day, it's a time word. So probably time when, or even time within which both are in the ablative case. And septimo most likely agrees with it. So we could say on the seventh day. On the seventh day. Perites. So perites, that is either nominative or accusative, plural, of pedes, peditus, meaning a footman, a dude on his feet. In the plural, we say infantry. So a foot soldier, or in the plural, infantry. Here it's going to be infantry because it's plural, and it's either the subject or the direct object, either nominative or accusative. We don't know which, but something happened to them on the seventh day. Tellis, from tellum e neuter. We've had that word in the previous sentence. Offensive weapons, assault weapons. We could just say weapons. It's either dative or ablative, plural, neuter. Probably going to be ablative of means because it's an instrument by which you do something. Casra, from casra orum, always neuter, always plural. Camp, either nominative or accusative, plural, neuter. Either the subject or the direct object. So either the infantry are doing something to the camp or the camp are doing something to the infantry. Apud naverunt, Context is key. Apugno, apugnare, apugnawe, apugnatus. To attack, I would imagine the infantry are attacking the camp instead of the camp are attacking the infantry. No. Yes, huh? So the infantry attacked, or they have attacked, the camp, kasra being an accusative direct object, and perites being the nominative subject. And how did they attack the camp? By means of what? With what instrument? The weapons, the teles, the assault weapons. And when did they do it? Ablative of time when. On the 7th day, the infantry attacked the camp with weapons. And, they ain't done yet, ducem, dux ducus, masculine, leader. Accusative singular masculine probably is the direct object. I don't see a preposition indicating motion towards. It could also be a predicate accusative or something, but we don't know. Let's find out. Hostium. It's a genitive plural masculine because it's an I stem of hostis, hostis masculine. And that enemy is back again. We say the enemy because it's plural. Genitive plural. Reason for genitive, probably possession, the leader of the enemy. So the enemy's leader. And then caperant. From capio capere capi captus, caperant. So there's kep, the perfect stem, and then erant, the third person plural, perfect active indicative. So they took, they captured, they grabbed. They took the ducem hostium. They grabbed the enemy of the leader. They took him. On the 7th day, the infantry attacked the camp with weapons, and they took the leader of the enemy. They took the leader of the host. They took the enemy's leader. Oh. Optime, quarta, legiones paucis diebus aderunt cum auxiliis, si Germani vic dierunt. So legiones, from legio, legiones, feminine. Legion. It's a legion, and remember that a legion, is a picked together gathered thing from lego, legere, legi, lectus, and it's feminine. Legio, feminine. Legion is feminine. Remember, legion is feminine. So legiones, legions, because it's plural, and it's either nominative or accusative. Either the subject or the direct object, and we don't know which yet. Something's either going to happen to the legions or the legions are going to do something. Paucis, from pauci I. It's an adjective that is always and only plural because it means a few, and you can't have a few singular. So paucis, it's either dative or ablative plural, masculine, feminine, or neuter. It's an adjective agreeing with, hey, diebus, our old friend. Dies, a masculine, fifth declension masculine. So paucis is masculine to agree with diebus, and it's probably ablative because dies is a time word. You mostly see this word in the accusative and the ablative. Accusative to show duration of time, how long the action goes, for days, or in the ablative to show time when, like in tertia, on the 7th day, or even time within which. Time within which, mean within which time, a few days, something will happen, which explains aderunt. So aderunt, that is the third plural future. Hopefully you see erunt, the third plural future of sum, to be. This is ad sum, so to be ad present, nearby, at hand. Well, that explains legiones. You can't have a direct object if the verb is to be. Can't have an accusative direct object. That don't work that way because sum is a linking verb. So you need to have nominatives, subjects and predicate nominatives. So that clears that up. Legiones is the subject. The legions will be present, will be at hand. They will be there. Paucis diebus. Within what time span? Paucis diebus, within a few days. The legions will be there within a few days. Cum auxiliis. Cum, preposition meaning with. It either is ablative of accompaniment or ablative of manner. Auxiliis. This is the plural of auxilium, auxili, neuter, help or aid. This is reinforcements. The plural of auxilium is auxilia, auxiliorum, neuter plural, and it means reinforcements, the auxiliary troops of the Roman army, the non-legionnaires. So cum, with the auxiliaries, with the reinforcements. And this is an ablative of accompaniment. It's not going to be they don't do something in the manner of auxiliaries. It's kind of odd. So this is definitely ablative of accompaniment. In the company of the auxiliaries. It's along with them. The legions will be present along with the auxiliaries within a few days. Si Germani victi erat. Si does not mean yes. This is si if. Conditional. If. Conjunction if, starting a conditional clause. So conditional clause is composed of a protasis, which is Greek for the for extended. That's the thing that the si, the if, introduces. If it rains, if this happens, then the apodosis happens. Apodosis is Greek for the payoff. If it rains, I will jump in puddles. If this happens, then this will happen. So the legions will be there with the auxiliaries within a few days. That's the apodosis. Under what condition? What's the for extended? The if part. Si Germani, the Germans, nominative plural masculine of Germanasaon, the Germans, victi erunt, from vinco, vincere, vici, victus, to conquer, defeat, to win over, vinco, win over. So victi erunt, that is the third plural future perfect passive. And notice it's nominative plural, agreeing with the Germani, indicative. So they will have been. They will have been verbed. They will have been conquered. Who will have been conquered? The subject, Germani. If the Germans will have been conquered, that's the protasis. The apodosis, the payoff is the legions will be present with the reinforcements in a few days, within a few days. And you can flip them like it is the Latin. You can say the apodosis first and then the protasis, or the protasis first and then the apodosis. It really doesn't matter. The legions will be present within a few days, along with the reinforcements, if the Germans will have been defeated. Notice the use of the tenses. Victi erunt. That's future perfect. Latin is much more precise in its tenses than English. So that means that this action will have to happen in the future before this action will happen. The future perfect is the future completed. This action is completed, done with, over with, by the time of the future happening. So the Germans had to be defeated first before the legions arrive. Quinta. Puer, qui Marcus vocator, iter ab hoc oppido 3 passum per silvam ad urbem magnum fecit. So the puer, nominative singular masculine, a puer, pueri masculine, boy, opposite of girl. Qui, that is qui, quae, quod, relative pronoun, who or which. And it looks like it's nominative singular masculine. Now, the relative pronoun will introduce a relative clause, and it must agree with an antecedent in gender, number, and case. I'm sorry, that is not true. The relative pronoun must agree with the antecedent in only gender and number. It does not have to agree with it in case. I'll say that again. The relative pronoun must agree with the antecedent in gender and number. It does not have to agree with its antecedent in case. Puer is nominative. It's definitely the subject. Qui, well, that also is nominative. So in this case, they are the same case? Yes, they are. So puer qui, the boy who. Marcus vocator. So Marcus is nominative singular masculine of Marcus, e masculine. Mark. Vocator, voca, vocare, vocavi, vocatus, call. So it's third person singular and it's passive, present passive indicative. So he is called. Who is called? Ah, the boy. The boy who is called Marcus. This Marcus right here is a predicate nominative. The subject is actually qui. Who is called Marcus. Vocator is acting here like a linking verb. Who is called Marcus, and Marcus is a predicate nominative. If voca vocare, if that were an active voice verb, if we had a sentence like he calls him Marcus, the subject would be he calls, and then him would be the direct object, and then Marcus would be the predicate accusative to go with the accusative. But here, because the verb is passive, we have a nominative subject who is called predicate nominative Marcus. Not accusative, predicate nominative. And that's the end of the relative clause. It's just telling us who the boy is. The boy who is called Marcus. Iter, he iter, nominative or accusative singular neuter of iter itineris neuter. Now, we know it cannot be the nominative because we definitely have puer being the nominative subject. Iter has to be the direct object, logically. Direct object of the verb. And it's neuter. That's why it has the same form. Ab, preposition, away from, takes the ablative of separation. Hoc, notice the macron. It's hic, haec, hoc, this thing right here. Hic is here, this thing here, close by. It's right here. It's located close by here. It's the first person demonstrative, as opposed to ille, which is the third person far away from you. Hic, haec, hoc is here. It's the first person close by, next to you. And it agrees in gender numbering case with oppido, from oppidum e neuter town. That's ablative, singular, neuter, ablative of separation. We're moving away from this town. Which town? This town right here. We're talking about this one right here. We're like next to it. From this town, ablative separation. There's a journey from this town, and there's a boy who's named Marcus. This is really exciting. Tria. Tres, tria, 3. One of those numerals that actually does decline. You can check it out up here. So it's either going to be nominative or accusative plural neuter, and most likely agrees with milia, from milia, milium, neuter plural, thousands, nominative or accusative plural neuter. Now, we've seen an example in which milia is the subject, like right here, 2,000s of citizens did something. That's the nominative subject. But milia is often, very often, an accusative of extent of space, because it shows the distance traveled, how far the action of the verb extends. So 3,000s, tria agrees with milia, 3,000s, and then remember that milia requires a partitive genitive to complete its meaning. 3,000s of what? Of paces. A pace is 2 steps, so a mile is about, it's roughly 5,000 feet, 5,000 of our feet. It's not too far off from a standard English mile. So 3,000s of paces. Per silvam, per preposition takes the accusative, through, motion towards. Silva, I feminine, forest, woods. We're going through the forest. This is most likely, it has to be actually distance traveled because we have a nominative subject, the boy. So this is how far he went. Probably the verb is facio. It is, we already read the sentence. Because iter facere means to make a journey, to travel. Well, how far did he travel? 3,000s of paces, 3 miles. How away from which place? This town? From this town. His route was through the silvam, through the forest. Ad plus the accusative, motion towards. He went to the urbis feminine, city. And magnum, it's a big city too. Magnus aum agrees with urbem, gender number and case, accusative singular feminine. And here we go. Anticipatory parsing is the best. Facio, facere, feci, factus, to make or to do. Third person singular, because the boy is third person singular. He did the verb. Singular, perfect, active, indicative. Iter, facere, he did the route. He made the journey. He traveled. He marched. The boy, who is called Marcus, traveled from this town through the forest to the big city for 3 miles. Or he traveled for 3 miles from this town through the forest to the big city. Notice how we start at his origin, talk about his route, and then his final destination. 1, 2, 3. It's like logical order. Cool. Sexta. Televestra viri inquit, denave canicite, hostes adsunt et vos fortes esse debetis. Wow, rousing words. So tella, from tellum e neuter, you know this one. Weapons, assault weapons. Vestra, from wester, vestra, vestrum. That probably is going to agree with tella. So tella, nominative or accusative plural neuter, and that would make vestra also nominative or accusative plural neuter. We don't know if it's the subject or the direct object yet. And then we have weary. Notice it offset by commas, and it's not first, but it definitely looks like it's kind of nominative plural masculine. It's actually vocative. It's vocative plural masculine. Vocative shows direct address. Notice it's offset by commas. We are directly addressing, we're calling these men weary. Men. Men. Delawestra, your weapons. Your weapons, men. Inquit, quoth he said, saith he. De nawe conicite, de. Preposition meaning down from, away from, or it can also mean about or concerning, takes the ablative. Nawe, ship. Nawis, feminine. A ship, a boat. De nawe, down from the boat, or about the boat. Conicite, from conicchio, conicere, coniecci, coniectos. It's not just yakio to throw, it's cum yakio, coniacchio, to hurl, to throw with force, to cast with might. So conicite, this form, notice that it is the present stem, and ite, this is the plural imperative, conicite. So we are addressing vocative, these men, by their name, direct address. Men, cast ye. He's addressing more than one, so he's calling them by plural, te, conicite, throw. Cast your direct objects, your plural weapons, de nawe, from the ship. Sounds like a sentence out of Book 4 of Caesar. Men, saith he, quoth he said, spake he, cast your weapons down from the ship. Semicolon. Hostes, the enemy. Hostis, masculine. Nominative or accusative. Subject or direct object. Ad sunt. They're sunt, they are. Ad sunt, from ad sum. It's not just that they are, the enemy are. Yes, it's definitely got to be the enemy, nominative, subject. The enemy are present, are at hand. Et vos fortes, and ye, y'all. It's either a nominative subject or accusative direct object, and then fortes, nominative or accusative. It's either the subject nominative or the accusative direct object. Means strong or brave. Esse, present active infinitive of sum esse fui futurus, to be. Now, what are reasons for the infinitive? Either subjective, we could have objective, or we could have complementary. And then we have debeo, debere, debui, debitus, meaning owe or ought, debit or a debt. So ye owe to do something, or ye ought, present tense, second person plural present active indicative. Ye ought to be, and there's the subject, so ye ought to be brave or strong. The enemy are at hand, and ye ought to be strong. Remember, these are the exact words of the speaker, the subject of inquit. That's why inquit is being used. Inquit served as the Romans' quotation marks, because the Romans did not have quotation marks. Septima, manus equitum in urbe meridie venit, sed nihil cibi eis datum est. So manus us feminine, hand, or it can even mean a handful, like a band of men, a handful of people. Equitum, it's either the nominative subject or the accusative. There's no macron, so it must be the nominative subject. Equitum, from equus, equitus, masculine. Horseman, dude on horseback, a knight with a K. Now, looks like a band of knights, a handful of knights. So equitum being a partitive genitive, a handful of knights. Just a handful, not all of them, but just a handful of them. A handful of knights. I guess you could also argue that it's a genitive of material, a handful of them, but I think it's partitive. In plus the accusative, motion towards, we're going into the orbis, feminine city. Meridie, as the ablative singular masculine, It is meridiae masculine, though dies a masculine is one of the few masculines in the fifth declension, the other compounds of dies. So if it has dies in it, like meridies, it is also masculine. And meridies means the middle of the day, that is midday, noon, 12 o'clock, 12 p.m. And then it's in the ablative, so it's probably ablative of time when, at noon, at high noon. So a handful of knights into the city at high noon venit, venio, venire, veni, ventus, to come. So the handful came. A handful of knights came into the city at noon. Said, but, adversative conjunction, 1T, got your attention for a second. But, nihil, nominative or accusative, singular and neuter. Nihil is a defective noun. It's only got the nominative and accusative forms, and it is neuter. And if you have nothing of something, because nihil, like milia, is a noun. So if you want a noun to agree with it, like if you want no food or no wine or no whatever, the thing that you want nothing of, no of, that's got to be a partitive genitive. So it's nothing of food. Nihil kibi, nothing of food. Nihil aquae, nothing of water. So no food. Nihil aquae, no water, nothing of water. So this is either the subject or the direct object. This is kibi from kibusi, masculine food, definitely a partitive genitive. Eis, that is the dative or ablative plural of is, ea, id, could be any gender. And because it's a pronoun, it's demonstrative, it's the neutral demonstrative. It can mean this or that, but it usually refers back to something that we've already referred to. Probably is going to refer back to the cavalry, the knights. It's the only other plural thing that we see in the sentence. Datum est. Do dare dedi datus, to give. This is datum, fourth principal part. Notice it's neuter, so it goes with nihil, which is neuter. So that means nihil is the nominative subject. Datum est, third person singular. That also lines up with nihil, and it's perfect, and it's passive, and it's indicative. So nothing was given. Nothing of food was given to them. So nothing of food, no food was given. Eis, to them. Eis is dative, indirect object, and it refers back to the knights. A handful of knights came into the city at noon, but no food was given to them. Octava. Ubi legiones nostras viderunt, ei quicive servos esse cogerunt, cum celeritate fugerunt. So ubi, where or when, introduces a temporal clause, sometimes, or spatial clause. Here it's temporal. So when, legiones, legio, legionis, feminine, legion, remember it's feminine, either the nominative or accusative, nominative subject or accusative direct object. Nostras, accusative, well, that kind of clears that up. Looks like it agrees with legiones, accusative plural feminine. Noster, nostra, nostrum, our legions. So viderunt, third person plural. Video, videre, vidi, visus, to see. It's the perfect tense, third plural perfect active indicative, they saw. So when they saw our legions, when they saw our legions, what then happened? Temporal clause, when they did this. The main clause, ei quicive servos esse coegerunt, cum claritate fugerunt. Ei is actually going to be the nominative plural masculine of is, ea, id. Those guys, those. And is often answered by qui, by a relative pronoun. So is, ea, id will point out that there's something there. And then the qui will tell you what it is. So here we have nominative plural masculine. So those guys, who are they? Who, and then the qui picks up who they are and describes who they are. A just says there are some guys. Who are they? Well, qui cive servos esse coegerunt. That's who they are. and the relative clause picks up, describes them. Remember, relative clauses are adjectival clauses. So qui, quae, quod, who or which. Its antecedent is ei. Ei is a demonstrative pronoun, those who. So this is going to be nominative plural masculine. This must agree with its antecedent. Qui must agree with its antecedent in gender and number, plural masculine. Doesn't have to be the same case, but in this case, it is. So qui, nominative. Cives, from civis, masculine or feminine. There it is, we've already seen it. Now that's either the nominative or accusative, and we don't really know well enough which yet. Servos. Servos, from servus e masculine. It's got to be the direct object, accusative, plural. Slaves. Esse, from sum esse fui futurus, to be. And coegerant, from cogo, cogere, coegi, coactus, to drive, to compel, can also mean to force. Yeah, it means to drive together, to gather, can also mean to force or compel. And is definitely, there's the perfect stem, and third person plural, pluperfect. They had done this. Pluperfect active indicative. So it seems like this is the end of the relative clause, because we've reached a verb. And then the cum claritate fugerunt will pick up the main clause started by ei. So those guys, they did this. Who are they? Well, those guys who had gathered. How about forced? They had forced, subject accusative, cives, they had forced the subject accusative, objective infinitive to be, servos, because this is a subject accusative to be, we have a linking verb, we can't have a predicate nominative here, because this is accusative. Accusative, linking verb, predicate accusative. If this were nominative, we'd have a linking verb and then a predicate nominative. We have accusative, subject accusative, a linking verb, and then a predicate accusative. Servos is a predicate accusative. Those who had forced the citizens to be slaves, they, cum, preposition meaning with, either accompaniment or manner. Celeritate, from celeritas, celeritatis, feminine, swiftness or speed. Celeritate is the ablative. So cum plus the ablative. It's not going to be accompaniment. You didn't like do something alongside speed. Hey, what you doing, speed? This is manner. In the manner of speed, with speed. How did you do the action of the verb? This is equivalent to quickly, with speed, with haste. Ablative of manner. And fugerunt, from fugio, fugere, fugi, fugitus, to flee. So fugerunt, notice the macron. This is perfect stem, fug, and then erunt, third person plural, perfect active indicative, they fled. Who fled? Well, those guys. Who are they? Well, those are the guys who had previously, before they fled, they pluperfect had forced the citizens to be slaves. Oh, that's terrible. Yeah. Then what happened? Well, they fled with haste. They fled quickly. Oh. When did they do that? When they saw our legions. Oh, cool. So when they saw our legions, those who had forced the citizens to be slaves fled with haste. Those who had forced the citizens to be slaves fled with haste when they saw our legions. You can flip it around if you want. Nona, sententia nona. Canis albus sub mensa in horto diu dormiebat. Well, that's kind of cute. So canis, masculine or feminine. It's common because you can have a male or female dog. Canis, this is a dog, or a wolfer, a canine. Albus aon, meaning white, like Albus Dumbledore. And albus, adjective, agrees with canis, so a white dog. Sub mensa, sub, preposition. If it takes the accusative, it means up to the foot of, showing motion. If it takes the ablative, it means location, underneath, beneath. So mensa being ablative, we are underneath the mensa I feminine table. The white dog under the table. In plus the accusative shows motion towards, but in plus the ablative, like horto, shows location. So we are in the hortus, e masculine garden. under the table, in the garden. Du is an adverb meaning for a long time, and adverbs modify verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. Verbs like dormiebat, dormio, dormire, dormivi, dormitus, to sleep, perchance to dream. Dormiebat, third person singular, imperfect active indicative. To sleep, he was sleeping. Something was sleeping. So the white dog was sleeping for a long time under the table in the garden. And decima. Tertia acies in monte post castra allegato solis occasu continebatur. So tertia acies, tertia from tertius, it's an ordinal adjective, meaning the third something. And it's probably going to be nominative singular feminine. It could also be nominative or accusative plural neuter, but I cheated and looked at acies, and acies a feminine. Well, because that's feminine, and tertia, that looks feminine, I'm going to go ahead and assume that tertia acies, so the third battle line. Looks nominative. In fact, it's got to be nominative. Nominative singular feminine. The third battle line did something. In plus the ablative, in monte. So ablative location, mons montis masculine, in the mountain, on the mountain. Post, preposition, meaning after, behind, takes the accusative case, and castra orum neuter plural, that's definitely accusative, castra. So behind the camp, after the camp, it's probably behind the camp, it's probably spatial. The third battle line, on the mountain, on the hill, behind the camp. Allegato, ab, preposition meaning away from. Legato, from legatus e masculine, legate, we are going away from the legate. Or it could be ab plus the ablative to show personal agent. The agent, the doer of a passive voice verb. So if the end verb is passive, we could have personal agent. If not, it's probably separation. Either away from the lieutenant, separation, or by the lieutenant, personal agent. Solis, from sol solis, masculine, the sun. It's genitive to go with okasu, the sun's okasu, setting. Okasus us, make run over the u, masculine. It's a fourth declension masculine, meaning setting, a falling, a dying. So the setting of the sun, spatially that means the west. So you can just say the west. Temporally that means sunset. Continebatur, and okasu is ablative of time when, and solis is genitive of possession. Continebatur is third person singular imperfect passive indicative of contineo, continere, continui, contentus. It is cum teneo, not just teneo to hold, but to hold cum together, to bound, to hold in place, to contain. Notice it's passive. Well, that tells us that allegato is personal agent. So we have the third battle line, the subject, was being contained. Where? In the monte. On the hill. Where? Behind the camp, post castra. Oh, by whom? By the lieutenant. Okay, solis okasu, when? At the setting of the sun, at sunset. The third battle line was being restrained by the lieutenant on the mountain behind the camp at sunset. Optime, very well done. That wraps it up for exercise A. You are now ready to move on to exercise B.